Hey guys, Kevin here with etrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster automatic battery disconnect switch here on our 2017 Chevy Silverado 2500. To flat tow your vehicle, there's going to be 5 main components, and that's going to be your tow bar, your base plate, your diode wiring, your braking system, and then also your safety cables. Now there are going to be a couple of outlier products, whether it's going to be a relay, a stoplight switch kit, or in our case, a battery disconnect. And if you have any questions or you just don't know exactly what you need for your vehicle, you can reach out to us via our expert link and send in a question asking for the right components for your specific vehicle. And someone like me or one of my other coworkers will answer your question. If you plan on towing your Chevy Silverado 2500, you are going to be required to remove the positive post on your battery. And that's going to protect some of the internal components and prevent battery drain as you're flat towing. Now, that's going to require you removing this cover and pulling the battery cable off every single time and putting it back on when you do need to use your vehicle, which can be quite a hassle. So instead, our automatic battery disconnect switch is going to give you a simple one push button option. As you can see, our disconnect switch is actually a very, very small, tiny button that's going to give you tons of versatility on where you can put it. It looks almost factory-like. You're not going to have some big, bulky switch or anything that's going to look crazy inside your car. All it is a simple on or off switch. So it makes it as simple as just one click and your battery's disconnected or your battery's back on. As far as installation goes, it is pretty simple, especially with the Silverado with this big, wide open engine bay. It makes it real easy to get in there and install it. If you had a smaller engine bay, maybe you had some more stuff in here, then you could kind of run into some routing issues. But other than that, I think the hardest part really was just kind of getting through the grommet when we installed our switch, and even that only took a couple minutes. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of figure out our placement for our battery disconnect. Now this does need to stay close to the battery because your leads only go so far, but we also need to route this over to our driver's side of our vehicle because we're going to be running this gray wire in through a grommet in the firewall and then up to our little button that we can use to turn it on and off. Now I have pretty good open space right up here, so I think I'm going to mount it right here and then just run our gray line right across. And we have our battery leads right where they need to be. Now, one thing I do recommend, since I'm going straight into that metal right there, I'm gonna ground our white wire there as well. They do give you a ring terminal, but it's pretty small, so I switched up to a little bigger that we had here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put it right on my mounting screw. That way I can handle it all in one. So I've gone ahead and I just followed the wiring that we already have here. It's going to keep it nice and tucked up away from everything else. We don't have to worry about it drooping down and touching the engine. I've got it zip tied on, and then I ran it all the way over to here because we have a gasket right here that's in our firewall. Pretty large, and it's got a little nipple on the top of it right there. We're going to drill right through that, and that's going to come out on the inside of our cab. Now while you're in there, you're going to see a junction box that you can usually plug in like a custom wiring harness. It's going to be just above that. So if you're looking at like your parking brake, it's going to be pretty much right above that. And then it is quite hard to see. So like I said, we're going to come up here. I'm going to kind of push this up a little bit and then just take a little drill bit through it just so I don't slice off too much using a knife or anything like that. And then we can just push our wiring through and grab it on the inside. So I had a little bit of an issue trying to get the wiring through. It just really wasn't as stiff as it should be to kind of push through. So what I did was I just took some airline tube and pushed it through. You could also do this with a coat hanger. Anything pretty much that's going to be kind of wiggly or something that you can kind of bend a little bit just to kind of get it out there. And then also you don't need to go too big, maybe like 3 feet long in length. And then I just taped it on there and we can pull it through on the other side, get our wire all the way through without having to fight it. Now that we have our wiring through, now we just need to determine the best location for our switch. Now there is quite a bit of room here on our dash because this switch is super small. Just to make it real easy though, we'll probably end up just putting it right here. There's plenty of open room here. You really just need to make sure that the thickness of that wall is going to allow for enough space on the back. So we're going to double check that first, but I think we'll be good to go if we just kind of put it over in this area. Won't have to really worry about it, and the wiring is honestly going to be right out of the way anyway. So if you ever had to get in here and mess with any of these fuses, you'd still be able to do that. All right, I'm going to use a smaller drill bit first, and then we're going to work our way up to a 5/8. Be real careful you don't go too far in, because we do have quite a bit of stuff behind this. All right, I traced my wiring up through that hole inside of our dash. Now we can just strip back the casing, because there's going to be 2 wires actually inside of here. Insulation off. And then we can strip back our casing on our 2 wires. And that's going to hook to the back side of our switch into these little terminals here. All right, we'll go ahead and twist up our wires. We're going to slide our nut over. That way, when we connect, we don't have still be able to tighten up the switch to our dash. And then we'll slip our wiring in through the terminals here. So it's in, we can go ahead, and I'm just going to kind of twist it back around the terminal. That way it's got a nice tight connection. And now we can tighten down our screws. Now that we have our wiring tightened up on our terminals, we're going to go ahead and slip our switch back in place. And then on the other side, we can tighten it up with our nut. Now with that nice and tight, we can just take our excess wiring and just zip tie it up and get it out of the way so that it's not loose down under the dash, and so that it's not really in the way up here if we had to do any changes with our fuses. So now we're going to go ahead and hook up to our battery cable. So as you can see, this cable runs up and it powers all these other posts. So we're going to be taking this wire off so that it can connect to our disconnect switch, so that when we turn our disconnect switch into the off position, it'll cut power from our battery so that there's nothing draining it. Go ahead and loosen that up. And then we can pull off our wire. All right, so when you're looking at your cables, you're going to see one that says battery cable and then one that says battery post. Our battery post is going to go to our cable that we pulled off of our post. So as you can see with this setup, here's our positive terminal. It's going to run up and it's going to power this whole leg right here, which powers all these other posts. So we're going to hook up our battery post to that, and the battery cable is going to run to our leg right here. Now when we're doing this, you're going to have a bolt, 2 washers, and a nut. But before you go ahead and do any of that, take your heat shrink and just slip that on over. That's going to protect the connection between these 2. All right, that's good. And we're going to take our bolt. I'm going to run it through the original battery cable first. Then we're going to take a washer. Slide that on. Once we got that washer on, we can go ahead and hook on our other cable, then a washer, and then our nut. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you keep it kind of straight, because we are going to stick that heat shrink back over. Next, we can take our battery cable, labeled cable, and slip that on over and just put on that nut there and tighten it down. Our last step in the installation is going to be just hooking in our fuse. There we go. Once we have that in, we can go ahead and cover it up with our cap. As you can see, we have it on right now, and our battery's pulling power in through here. If we hit our disconnect, totally cuts our power, and we know that it's working properly. Well, I think that about does it for today's install of the Roadmaster automatic battery disconnect switch here on our 2017 Chevy Silverado 2500. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.